What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, and this is your NFL Week 7 betting preview. We're going to talk about our favorite sides, totals, teasers, moneyline underdogs, survivor picks, and of course, crack open our weekly Sunday six-pack of Against the Spread bets with the help, of course, of my co-host, the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuck. What's going on, man?
What's going on, brother? It was a good week in the NFL for us. You should have swept the entire card. Shout out to Mac Jones for taking that safety. Although I actually would blame
Devontae
Parker more. Like, catch that ball. And then that never happens.
But Parker catching balls never happened. So, we got to rule that.
Yeah, that's true.
Jones
has to have. You have to have more awareness that you have one guy to worry about on the Raiders defense, right? Like, one guy, and if you take a safety there, the game's over. So you have to be extra aware of Max Crosby, who comes off of the right side of the offensive line, his left side, 90% of the time. And you just didn't. So that was devastating. You should have swept. I got lucky. I had a really good week, but who cares? We're on the next week. But I do want to say I got lucky with the Bengals, who should not have covered. Although I got unlucky with the
Geno. 15 red zone possessions that he just stood there and got sacked. Geno Smith was Mac Jones just in the red zone instead of his own end zone. Just standing there. Just standing.
Yeah, and Bengals offensive line had major problems. They benched Volson at one point. Brown got hurt, but that offense still is not all the way back. Red zone futility. I also got super unlucky, so I kind of evened out with the Ravens over. There was one touchdown on 9 trips inside the red zone, which was just infuriating. That game should have had about 60 points, but that was the theme of the weekend. Red zone futility. I mean, it has been a problem across the board. And what does that lead to? That leads to a lot of unders. And we saw last week, unders 12-2-1, the best week in 27 years. Unders now 56-36-1, 60.9%. Best start through 6 weeks to a season for unders since 1991. And then also when you have some of these teams that are just completely inept and burning red zone chances, like in the case of the Seahawks, 2 red zone chances at the end of the game, no points. You have these lopsided box scores where a team didn't cover and or win, even though they should have. Seahawks I think they doubled up the Bengals in yardage. Colts, Jags, that came out as more turnovers. But the Colts, if you look at that box, you say, wait, how did the Colts get blown out? And the Falcons, Commanders, the Falcons almost doubled up the Commanders in yards. So there were some odd box scores. There were a lot of red zone futility and a lot of unders, which has been a theme so far this season because no one last week. I mean, look, the perfect summation of that is the Giants. I mean, the Giants can't even score a single point from 2 drives at the 1 at the end of the first half in the game. So we will see how these offenses adjust. There's a lot of variance in a short amount of time. So some of these totals are coming down. You're seeing a big overcorrection. There might be a nice bounce back for overs in the coming weeks. But nice week for the pod. Nice season so far, but as I always say, who cares? Last week was last week. It's time to move on.
Man, that Mac Jones thing. I don't know about you, but I know when I'm watching games and I got money on a game, I can quickly go through the scenarios in my head and immediately I'm looking at this game 1917. I just need the Raiders. To get a first down. Giving it back to the Patriots
or the Patriots. Yeah.
Yeah, but I meant I just didn't want the Patriots to get the ball because
could have been disasters.
Yeah, and I just don't understand. And I feel like this is happening around the league more in the last, I would say, few years than I've ever seen before. Dan Orlovsky used to be a running joke. He stepped out the back of the end zone, but you just didn't see safeties this commonplace. And now I just feel like coaches are doing nothing special. They're just calling normal plays when they're backed up in their own end. And quarterbacks they're not trying to get the ball. They're just dropping back in the end zone as if anything goes wrong, a hold, a sack, a fumble, anything goes wrong. That's
grounding.
The other team. Right. It's like I just don't get it. It's like it's so obvious. Like I would call nothing but quick passes, get the ball out, like scramble, do anything, but do not hold the ball in the end zone for more than a beat. Like I just don't get it. But as you said, on to the next, and we'll see. We'll see if the league wide. I mean, the red zone struggles I think are just a microcosm of passing efficiency being down.
Yeah.
You're averaging 6.6 adjusted yards per attempt this year. That's the lowest since 2010, which you remember that's when they started changing the rules to really benefit the offense. Yards per completion, 10.6. That is, let's see, that would be an all-time low if that held. And it would be an all-time low by 0.3, almost a half yard. 10.9 was the lowest in history last year because teams are throwing underneath more, more quick game and stuff like that.
And 2 high safeties, taking away explosive plays. Yep. It's the Mahomes counter effect.
Yeah, we're under 6 yards net per drop back for the first time since 2006. So yeah, we've seen this kind of league wide. Also, some pretty bad quarterbacks, I think make up that bottom tier as well, even worse than usual. But we'll get into all that on the pod, of course. And for those asking, yes, these episodes always available in full on the Action Network YouTube page every Thursday afternoon. So check those if you prefer video, and be sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Really helps us out a ton. But let's get right into it this week with our Thursday night football preview. Jags at Saints. Saints are favored by a point at BetMGM. The total is 40. Looks like Trevor Lawrence is tentatively going to try to suit up. At least that's what we're hearing as we record this on Wednesday afternoon. I mean, my handicap for this game is I don't want to. It's ugly. It's Thursday. I don't want to touch it. If I was, I'd probably look under, even though it's come down. The Saints pretty much don't give up 20, and they don't get to 20. And now you got a banged up Lawrence. They'll probably run it a little more. The Press Terror, the OC for the Jaguars, talking up ETN's ability to be a workhorse. You don't want to expose Lawrence, who tends to kind of get sped up or scramble into trouble at times in the pocket. So I think you're going to see a run-heavy game from Jacksonville. New Orleans will play solid defense and probably have shit play calling and score like 13-17. So I'd lean under, but what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this game is awful. It is your classic, just ugly Thursday night game. I mean, these are two teams that are in the playoff mix, so at least we have that going for us. But, I project this game with before any adjustments at exactly a pick. And so, this is a true toss-up to me. But then you throw in the fact that with the uncertainty of Trevor Lawrence, who I've worth about 5 to 6 points. So, if I knew Trevor Lawrence was out for sure, I would have the Saints favored here by 5.5. Maybe 4.5 if it's uglier game, lower total. But, definitely significantly over a field goal. If it's a 50% Lawrence, maybe the Saints are 2.5 point favorites here. Their offense certainly has not been clicking. But you have the Lawrence uncertainty. So I don't want to bet this game because I just don't know, right? Lawrence, it could be a smokescreen. They might not be playing at all. It's a short week. He might be ineffective, not be able to move. He might go in and then not be able to go. And then, you're down to CJ Beathard. And that's a significant downgrade, to say the least, against a really good defense. And it's also just a tough spot for the Jags on a short week, because if you think about it, they have 2 weeks in London, and then you come back to Jacksonville, you play a divisional game, and now you have a short week. They've done a lot of traveling here, and you're going into a tough environment, playing a team off of a bad loss. And the Saints, I just don't trust their offense enough. But if I had to bet it, I would bet the Saints just because of the uncertainty surrounding Lawrence. So if he's out or significantly hampered or can't go the full game, then I think there is some value on the Saints now that the line has come back down. Under's never a bad look in a Saints game. The Saints have gone under 12 straight games and 15 of 16. They're the only team to go under in every game this year. So I think it's a good spot for the Saints. And with the uncertainty surrounding Lawrence, I'd lean Saints. I'd lean under, but too much uncertainty for me to get involved, especially when you throw in the fact that it's a short week. So just throw in some more ugliness in this game. This is a pure pass for me.
Yeah, I don't want to touch it either. Like I said, if I had to bet it, I'd just go under. The Saints have been under machines, as you mentioned, and Thursday Night Football unders when the total's 40 or less, 22-7 and 2 since 06. That is a 76% cash rate. And of course, primetime unders when they drop more than a point, 88, 52, 63% since 2015. I've been betting a lot of primetime unders, more so on Sunday and Monday night, but this one certainly qualifies as well. Okay, let's be done with this Thursday night game and get into the six-pack. And real quick before we do, just want to remind everyone that we have our Discord, and you can find me, Kerner, and lots of other Action Network experts on the Action Discord server, especially during Thursday Night Football. To join, just use the invitation link in the description of this episode. And now it's time for our Week 7 Sunday Six-Pack.
Thirsty for action? Let's crack open the Sunday Six-Pack.
All right, as you mentioned, good week for us. Both went 2-1 on our six-pack picks, and the Giants came through clutch. The Panthers just couldn't quite hang. It was they got that 14-0 lead, and you thought, okay, it could happen, but still, those tend to cash more often than not. But we only really caught one falling knife because Panthers didn't cash and Patriots didn't cash. So you caught the falling knife with the Giants, but besides that, 0 for 2 on that. So got to try to sweep this week. 25-21, I'm up. I will go first this week. And for the first pick of the Week 7 Sunday Six-Pack, I'm going with the Los Angeles Chargers plus 5.5 at the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is, at this point, one of these bets we pretty much make year in, year out in this spot. Chargers at the Chiefs, getting more than a field goal. Chargers have not lost by more than 3 points this season. Chargers have only lost by 6 or more points 3 times since the start of last year. So they've lost 11 times, including that playoff game. Only 3 of those games have been by 6 or more. So that means since the start of last year, they played 23 games, and only 3 times have they lost by 6 points or more. That's just 13%. So 87% of the time, they're keeping it lower than 6. They're keeping it, either they're losing by 5 or less, or they are winning. And we've kind of seen that with Herbert against the Chiefs in his career. He's 2-4 straight up, but 5-1 against the spread, covering by just under 5 points a game. And that's because the losses 3, 3, 3, and 6. And then you have a situation where this Kansas City offense.
By the way, he should be 6-0 against the spread. He should be 6-0 against the spread. The 6-point loss came in overtime when they were a 3-point dog. So they have not been trailing by more than 3 at the end of regulation in any of the meetings between Mahomes and Herbert.
And that just makes sense, because what do you need when you're playing KC? Kansas City is gonna, with Mahomes, gonna put himself in position to win. They almost never are down, 2 possessions late. They're usually up, or they're in position to take a lead. But you need a guy like Justin Herbert on the other side who could just sling it, get the ball down the field in a hurry, good in the 2-minute drill, has an alpha receiver in Keenan Allen, because this Kansas City defense has been a lot better. I will say that. But this is an offense that I think, Rashee Rice is starting to break out, but you lost Mahomes' favorite deep threat, which is kind of crazy to say, Justin Watson. He was really doing what Marquez Valdez-Scantling should be doing, but he's just running wind sprints out there. He's invisible pretty much. So this receiving core is still kind of shaky, which is good because the Chargers have had, some issues at cornerback. They've been better since J.C. Jackson, since they, got rid of J.C. Jackson, who was just giving up a ton of big plays. But still, I think going against a team with weaker wide receivers always is going to benefit the Chargers. They do have some, they have Derwin James, who can at least, try to do some things and try to contain Kelsey. You never really can stop him. You just slow him down, but he's going to get his. But this is just a classic Kansas City fade spot. 14-27 against the spread, 34% when favored by more than a field goal since early November of 2020. And, a lot of people like to look at Andy Reid in this extra time to prep. And you pointed it out on Happy Hour. With Kansas City, Reid is just 10-13 against the spread with 9 or more days to prepare. 4-7, just 36% against the spread in those situations with Patrick Mahomes. And divisional road dogs against home favorites that have covered in at least 4 of their last 6, 81, 51, and 6, 61% against the spread over the last 2 decades. So like this matchup for the Chargers. Think the Chiefs probably can hang on and win it, but 19 points against the Broncos, last rated defense at home. That kind of shows you that this Chiefs offense is not clicking on all cylinders. They're a little more willing to run the ball this year, which I think also kind of helps, opposing underdogs cover against them. So give me the Chiefs plus 5.5, and I will give me the Chargers, plus 5.5. And I will say, this is, you mentioned the 6 and the Chargers, it's usually a 3-point game or it's tied. Like, what the Chargers are going to do. So I actually don't mind buying up to the 6 at minus 120. Don't think we're going to get back there to the 6 without juice, but having that little push insurance for some OT, don't mind it if you can get it, but we'll take the 5.5 here for the contest. Chargers, let's go.
Yeah, this was going to be one of mine, so I was disappointed when you took it first in the draft. It's a bad feeling because then you're like, oh man, am I going to get all the ones I like taken? And luckily you didn't take my other 2, but this was one of my 3 that I wanted. So I completely agree. This is, and for what it's worth, it's on the surface, short week for the Chargers, Chiefs off extended rest, Andy Reid with extra prep. But that, as we said, 10-13 against the spread. Also, road teams that have less than 7 days of prep, which the Chargers do, taking on teams with 10 or more days to prep. Those teams with short preparation, 45, 35, and 1 against the spread over the past 20 years. That's 56.5%. So hasn't been a big issue and or has just been over adjusted in the market. And yeah, mention those close games. This is like the Chiefs can't cover big numbers. They can't cover over a field goal. The Chargers always play close games. They always tend to play the Chiefs tough. This is the Chargers season. They really need this game. And the Chiefs offense is just not the same right now. Look no further than, and Mahomes has been pretty lucky on a couple of throws. Mahomes this year, 9 big-time throws, 9 turnover-worthy plays. Yet he has 11 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Last year, 38 big-time throws, 19 turnover-worthy plays, 2-to-1 ratio. He's at 1-to-1 this year. That led to 48 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. He's at a 1-to-1 ratio this year. This offense is just out of rhythm. The wide receiver core obviously has some issues. So does the offensive line. And yeah, this game probably comes down to the Chiefs winning by a field goal. And then look, if you have Herbert late and you're down 10 points, you need him to go down the field and get a touchdown to get in the back door, which has happened once before in this matchup. You feel pretty good. So I completely agree with the Bolts. All right, for my first pick and the second overall of the Week 7 Sunday 6-pack, I am going with the Baltimore Ravens -3 at home against the Detroit Lions. This is a couple of firsts for me. The first time I'm betting the Ravens this year, And the first time I'm betting a Lions game. I haven't bet a Lions game all year. They are 5-1 against the spread. I think this is the top of the market on the Lions. Look, one thing you could do in the NFL, even if you just don't know anything, is just listen. Listen around. And as soon as you start hearing this team, I've heard people say the Lions are the best team in the NFL. The Lions are number one in their power ratings. And as soon as you start hearing that, there's probably a good chance that the market is kind of peaked out on that team. The Lions have won 4 straight. Who are they beat? The Falcons and Desmond Ridder, a banged-up Packers team missing half their offense, a banged-up winless Panthers team, and the Bucs with Baker vomiting all over himself last week. That means that their quarterbacks they beat in this 4-game win streak, Love, Ridder, Young, and Baker. And if you watched that game last week against the Bucs had multiple 80 to 90-yard touchdowns that Baker missed. One got tipped. He missed a couple. This secondary, which hasn't faced anyone with a pulse since week 1, and we just talked about the Kansas City offensive struggles. We saw them get beat by Seattle, giving up 38 points. This secondary has issues, and it hasn't really been exploited yet. They played one of the easiest schedules of opposing offenses. I do think, and look, if you look at like DVOA, their defense is ranked 3rd. The Ravens is 2nd. I think both of these units have overperformed based on their opposing schedules. I do think that the Lions' run defense is real. Lee McNeil has turned into a great run stuffer. You also have like Jones and Buggs up there taking up blocks. Jack Campbell, really good against the run. He can't cover. You have guys like Kirby Joseph at safety. He's been good against the run. He can't cover. And Cam Sutton and Jerry Jacobs, I'm sorry, they're just not a great outside cornerback duo. Maybe you get Branch back because if not, Will Harris is your slot, and he's horrendous. This secondary is bad. The linebackers struggle in coverage. This defense just is, against the pass, is very vulnerable, is ripe for the picking, and the Ravens are close. And I think the Ravens are going to attack this Lions secondary. And if you look the past 2 weeks, it was red zone problems last week. They moved the ball up and down the field. The week before against the Steelers, it was drops. And really, in both games, they should have had 28 to 31 plus. And don't forget, this team put up 28 with ease against the Cleveland defense that no one can get a first down against. So this offense is really close. They've also had a couple weeks to kind of assimilate the offensive linemen that were hurt back in. They've had injuries all over. I think this offense is ready to break out. And I think that they're going to come out more aggressive after last week. They kind of went really conservative in the red zone, knowing that they probably could hold on with their defense and special teams. So I think this is the peak of the market for the Lions. You also have outdoor Goff with some win conditions. Indoor Goff, 27-13 against the spread. Outdoor Goff, 33-31 against the spread. Right around 500. His numbers aren't as good. And look, this is when you want to play Lamar Jackson, 18-4 against the spread as an underdog or favorite of less than 3, covering by 8 points per game. That includes 12-1 against the spread against teams with a winning record, 10-0 when the line's between 3 and 3. So we're not talking about just all when he's a bigger underdog. And then he's 18-27 against the spread as a favorite of more than a field goal. So I think that the Ravens are going to go a little pass heavier here, and I think they're going to take advantage of this Lions defense that I think is overrated. It has holes and can be picked apart. And the other side of the ball, when the Lions have injuries at running back, they're going to have to go, I think, a little more pass heavy too. And, they've scored 20 straight in 15 games. 14 straight games they've scored at least 20 points. I think their offense will do some things here, but I think Goff will make a key mistake or two. And there's a huge, huge special teams advantage for the Ravens here. Couple field goals with the wind that probably go the Ravens' way and not the Lions' way. And I think we're at the top of the market on the Lions. This defense is ready to be picked apart. And I think that Lamar Jackson and company are going to do it. So give me the Ravens laying a field goal at home against the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I'll trust you on this one. I feel like I never have a good read on the Ravens these days. It's just tough to kind of, you were talking about it last week. Like that game should have gone over easily, and they just kind of like something with their offense. I guess it's just not as consistent as it should be. So that's the only thing that with the number exactly at 3, I feel like that's probably the most likely outcome is them winning by a Justin Tucker field goal. So I don't see as big of an edge than you, but I will say like no one aside from when they're playing the Cleveland Browns, no one knows the Ravens better than you. So I'll trust you on this one, and I think you're gonna have more on this game when we talk totals as well. So won't harp on it too long. Let's just keep it going. For my second pick, third overall of the week, number 7 Sunday 6-pack. I'm going with those Tampa Bay Bucks -2.5 at home against the Atlanta Falcons. Feel like I've had a pretty good read on the Bucks this year. Every year I seem to have a read on one of these lowly NFC South teams. So we'll see if I can beat a Bucks whisperer this season. But I like this matchup for the Bucks. I like that they just got blown out and kind of came back down to earth, which I did predict last week. But first of all, in this matchup, Tampa Bay has just been the better team across the board every single phase this season. DVOA, they are 15th overall. Atlanta's 26th. 19th on offense. Atlanta 26th. 10th on defense. Atlanta 24th. 28th on special team. Atlanta's 29th. So kind of a wash there, but Tampa Bay has been the better team in all 3 phases. Importantly, Tampa Bay, after kind of a weird start to the year, run defense wise, they seem to have got that shored up a little bit more. 10th in run defense, DVOA. That's always important when you play the Atlanta Falcons, and that, being able to at least slow down the run, which this Falcons run game hasn't even been great. I'm kind of disappointed, but Tampa Bay likes to blitz. They blitz 40% of the time, just over 40% of the time. It's third most in the league. Desmond Ridder, 23rd of 33 quarterbacks in PFF grade against the blitz. His yards per attempt drops about a half yard. And I think he's going to struggle against this defense. Firstly, we know Desmond Ridder has these weird home road splits. I don't know how much there is to it, but just looking at his numbers, they are very stark. At home, 67% completion, 7.3 yards an attempt, 230 passing yards per game, a 92 rating. On the road, 59% completions, 5.5 yards an attempt, just 177 yards per game, a 70 rating. So his rating drops over 20 points. On the road, Ridder, 0-4 straight up, 1-3 against the spread. And in 4 road starts, Desmond Ridder has gotten beaten by more points than the offense has scored. They have a -41 point differential in his 4 road starts, and they've scored 40 points, just 10 a game. Now, Ridder just overall hasn't been a great quarterback against the spread. He's just 3-7 against the spread, regardless of location. He's the lowest graded quarterback in PFF, in all situations, dead last of 35. QBR, he's 25th of 33. And I just think that this Bucs defense has cornerbacks on the outside, has linebackers that can, guard against the run, and also, those Bijan Robinson leak outs and screen passes and whatnot. And I really think this is going to be kind of a comeback down to earth for Ridder now after throwing for 300 in back-to-back games, even though he did have some pretty big mistakes in that Washington game. But then we flip it over. Okay, Atlanta, their pass defense still hasn't been good, even though they're getting more pressure this year. They're 29th in pass DVOA, but they do have the 3rd highest pressure rate. Now, usually you'd be like, okay, that's an issue, but Mayfield has been better versus pressure this year. 65.2 PFF grade, that's 6th out of 35 qualifiers. He's also 1st in yards an attempt against pressure and 1st in passer rating against pressure. That's among all quarterbacks, Mahomes, Tua, everybody. Baker Mayfield, number 1 against pressure. I think that Tampa Bay will be able to throw in this spot. Stuck, you talked about how they missed some open throws. I think they're going to have a chance to hit them this week against this bottom 5 defense and DVOA. Atlanta is top 10 against the run. That doesn't matter against Tampa. Tampa Bay is has the fourth fewest rushing yards per game. They're not going to be able to run on anybody. So the key is for them to be able to throw the football. I think they're going to be able to do it in this matchup, and I think they're going to be able to stop Atlanta on offense and be able to win probably what's going to be an ugly, low-scoring game. But I do think Tampa Bay is going to be able to put up some points and capitalize on some of those situations that they weren't able to against a much better defense in Detroit last week. Also, the second straight home game for the Bucs, and they were off a bye, so they should be feeling good, well rested. Whereas you have this Atlanta team, just their quarterback not good anywhere, especially not on the road. Give me the Bucs -2.5. Wait. Hold on 1 second. I'm not hearing you.
Oh, sorry, I got it.
Oh, okay. You had your mic.
I don't have a great feel on this one. I would say, the Baker pressure stats are definitely surprising, and he's been a pleasant surprise in that aspect. But it is a short, small sample size
absolutely.
Where there's a lot of variance in those numbers. And the Falcons, despite their lack of sacks, are actually getting a lot of pressure, and that's generally how you beat Mayfield. But if you just look at this matchup on paper, the biggest discrepancy is that the Bucs have been much more stout defending the pass, right? Both teams have been really good against the run, and then the Bucs have been much better defending the pass, and you still would take Baker Mayfield over Desmond Ridder.
Yep.
And he, on paper, has a better matchup here as far as the attacking the opposing secondary. So as long as Baker can avoid some catastrophic mistakes, which Ridder also could make just as easily, then I think that you're getting the Bucs at a decent price here. All right, for my second pick and the fourth overall of the Week 7 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Rams -3 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. For however long we've been doing this podcast, you say you're the NFC South Whisperer. I am the Tomlin Whisperer. I know they're coming off a bye and they're a dog. I tend to look at dog spots as when you're catching over a field goal. But this is a sleepy spot for the Steelers. Going on the road, playing a team that's 500. They're coming off of a big win. Like, this is similar to what we saw when they went to Houston and got absolutely obliterated. Even though you said, oh, their defensive line should dominate. It didn't. They didn't do anything. It was not a classic Tomlin spot. They didn't come out with their hair on fire at home against an opponent that was better than them. And look, let's be frank. This Steelers team, they should have one win on the season. They won 2 games because of defensive touchdowns and Ravens drops, and they just haven't been good. And when you look at both of these teams, just on paper, right, the Steelers arguably have been the worst offense in the NFL. They are dead last in success rate at about 36%, which is pitiful. It's always bad when you're below the Jets and Zach Wilson. And they are 8th. They've allowed the 8th highest explosive play rate. For what it's worth, the Rams are 8th in explosiveness and just got Cooper Kupp back. And from almost every metric, the Rams have a top 10 offense this year. So you're telling me I got a top 10 offense at home against one of the worst offenses in the NFL. And then on the other side, it's like the Steelers defense and the Rams defense, they're pretty similar. Like, there's just not a lot there. Raheem Moore's done a great job with the Rams and with their talent. And both defenses kind of grade out around average. No Hayward in the middle of that defense makes the Steelers' run defense extremely vulnerable. And I just really don't like their secondary outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick. So unless they're edge rushers in a pipe spot are basically winning the game for them, this defense can be picked apart, and I have the much better offense. And look, it's basically like, can Watt win the game? Can Donald win the game? And I think Donald actually has some much better matchups here. But look, if you rewind back a couple weeks ago, the Raiders were laying 3 at home against the Steelers. I have the Raiders as a below average team, below 20th in my power ratings. The Rams I actually have as slightly above average. So, and I'm laying the same exact price here. I think this is a sleepy spot for Pitt, even off the bye. This is just how the ebbs and flows of the Steelers playing a non-divisional opponent that's 3-3 after a win. The time to bet the Steelers is after they lose this game next week at home against the Jags. But yeah, give me the better offense at home. And for what it's worth, the Rams have had one of the toughest schedules of opposing defenses as well. And, opposing offenses. And their defense is still kind of grading out around middle of the pack. So they've been much better than I anticipated. So I think these are still two vulnerable defenses. The Rams have just a significantly better offense. There are running back injuries, but I'm actually a big fan of Zach Evans, and I think his skill set can fit perfectly in this zone scheme. So I think he'll have some success running the ball, but the Rams should have major advantages on the outside at receiver against this Steelers secondary. They should hit many more explosive plays. And the Steelers, look, this is still a Matt Canada offense with Kenny Pickett and a bad offensive line. Like, how many times can they hit George Pickens down the sidelines? Like, that's basically the offense. So I'll take the Rams laying a field goal at home.
Yeah, I don't mind betting against Kenny Pickett with a short number. There are, I think, some concerns with the Rams in this spot. Steelers coming off a bye, but also on offense are getting healthier. Pat Freiermuth should be back. That is big for them just because without him, like you said, it's nothing but sideline throws. Deontay Johnson started his window. I don't know if he'll be back this week, but there's a chance this offense could be at least healthier. I'm not going to say it's going to be better, but my other concern is, Steelers coming off a bye, they do have some time to prepare. I just hope it's not another one of those games where Sean McVay kind of overthinks it again, like he did in that very winnable Cincinnati game that they blew, because without the running backs, and we know how much he loves Kyron Williams because he barely gave anyone else a snap, I just worry that he's going to get too pass heavy. And remember, the Steelers' weakness is against the run. Yeah, they're outside corners too, which is why I think the Rams could still win, if they need to put up points. But I just worry that McVay will abandon a run too soon, and that'll give that Pittsburgh pass rush and Watt, some chances to tee off on Stafford, and that's how you could kind of muck up the game. So a little bit concerned about that, but overall, I'm never gonna mind fading Pickett, Ritter, Wilson, like all these guys. Like, just do it. Let's just keep going. Let's just keep fading these dudes. They're not good.
Hopefully McVay learned from last week, because I had the Rams money lined with the Ravens, and they ran the ball 3 times in the first half.
I know.
Was bad. And you can run all over Arizona, just like you can run all over Pittsburgh. And McVay, someone smacked him across the head, and he came out and they ran for 200 yards in the second half and just cruised, and it opened up everything else in the offense. So hopefully he learned from that half and comes out here, sticks with Evans, Royce Freeman, whoever it is, whoever else they pick up off the street. Because I think that they'll, regardless who's back there, they'll have success running the ball, and that will set up everything else. But yeah, give me the Rams at home laying a field goal.
I think Tutu Atwell will have a good game. He's been kind of quiet since Kupp came back, aside from that short touchdown. But I think he'll have some success against this scheme, so that could give the Rams a boost. I think that's the Rams' big edge. Just their 3 pass catchers, Kupp, Nakua, and Atwell against these Steeler corners. I think that's how they win. All right, for my third and final pick, the 5th overall of the Week 7 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going to hold my nose and try to replicate what you did last week. Much shorter line, but give me the G-Men +2 at home against the Washington Commanders. Now, I think the Giants could win this game. Obviously, that's why we're taking them inside of a field goal here. And the reason I think the Giants could win this game is, and I think it's probably going to be Taylor again. I know Jones says he wants to play. I think it's a multi-week injury. We'll see. But
yeah, it was multi-week last time he had a neck injury. Like
he
said he was going to play, and he was out for a while.
But this is kind of what we do. You and I, every year we do this pod, seems around this time of year, we start getting into, okay, it's not about, the market and what it was coming into the year. Now it's about looking at these teams, 6 weeks in, what are they starting to do to adjust, right? And even though I thought the Giants still had some coaching blunders, obviously, in that last game, and I don't care what, how much Tyrod Taylor wants to take the blame. As a coach, you just have to strike fear into that man to where he cannot be audibling into a run. But I digress. Other adjustments I think the Giants have made positively. So, Cordell Flott coming into the lineup in the nickel, get Trey Hawkins out of there at the rookie corner. He had allowed over 17 yards a target and over 23 yards a catch. So he's benched. You got Flott in the slot now. Deonte Banks holding his own, just 13 catches on 25 targets, 4.8 yards per targets, 120 yards given up on 165 snaps in coverage. That's great. Adoree Jackson has been struggling somewhat, but he's still a lot better than Hawkins. So I think the coverage is a little bit better. I also like that Wink Martindale was able to show some restraint last week. He didn't blitz every single down and every third down like he, might have done in the past. So I do see the scheme kind of evolving a bit. However, in this situation, I think you can blitz Sam Howell. He is 26 in PFF grade against the blitz. The Giants are blitzing still at the fourth highest rate, even after last week where they didn't blitz much. But you also have some other more subtle defensive adjustments. So you're starting to play your horses a little bit more. And over the long haul, probably not great, but over the short term for us to get a win, get off the schneid, I think it could work out. So Leonard Williams last week, 90% of the snaps, 62% weeks 1 through 5. Dexter Lawrence, 80% of the snaps last week, 68% in the first 5 weeks. Both of them played season highs in snaps. That just helps their run defense. That's just their best. You're just getting your best 11 on the field more often on defense. And then you're doing the same thing on offense. Slayton, Hyatt, and Wan'Dale Robinson were the unquestioned top 3 receivers last game. Isaiah Hodgins only mixed in the red zone, which is exactly where he should be mixing in. Paris Campbell didn't play a snap, and I think Shepard got maybe 1 snap, but neither of those guys were involved at all in the passing game. I think that's the way it should be. The O-line is still in shambles, so that's obviously a concern against this Washington front. But with Saquon Barkley back, I think you have more options, screen game, run a little bit more to take the pressure off the quarterback. Justin Pugh somehow is comes off the couch it was out of the NFL and somehow is their best lineman. But
I told you about him. I told you about him last week.
Yeah. You called it. I'll take it. I'll take it all against Washington. And here's another thing. And this kind of goes. I like the way they looked. Notwithstanding the two. The play call at the end of the half. Like the way the Giants looked on both sides of the ball last week. And special teams errors were also down. They were just committing penalty on every special teams play in some of these games. But you look at the schedule in totality now, and yes, the Giants are bad, obviously, but they faced the hardest schedule by DVOA, and you don't even need any advanced metrics. Just look at the schedule: Dallas, San Francisco, Seattle, Miami, Buffalo. 5 of their 6 opponents. You could argue those are top 10 teams. Maybe Seattle's more, top 12, 15-ish. But, those are some very good, quality of opponents. Whereas Washington faced the 6th easiest schedule by DVOA. They beat the Cardinals by 4. They beat the Broncos by 2. They lost by 20 to the Chicago Bears. So this Washington team has not really proven that it's anything different from the Giants, just a cellar dweller. It's just that the Giants have played one of the toughest schedule in the league. Washington's played one of the easiest and lost to a bottom 3 team, barely beat 2 other bottom 3 teams or bottom 4 or 5 teams, you could say, because Panthers are in there too. But I just think the Giants at home making some adjustments. Sam Howell, very mistake prone. You can blitz him. Giants are playing their best guys now. Taylor might even be an upgrade on Jones, at least at this juncture. Of what's going on with the O-line and just the personnel and everything. So and Saquon is still big. Saquon, he busted off a couple of long runs late in that game. That's what we needed to see. He'll be, probably still not 100%, but he'll be, I think, a lot better this week than he was last. And this run defense, it's not great. It's not bad. It's not great, but I think Washington is beatable in all facets, whether you want to throw on them, whether you want to run on them, whether and then on the other side, I think Howell can make mistakes in a pass game, and their run game, they don't really stick with it and try to establish it much. And I think the Giants playing their D linemen more, at least for this game, should help. So just got to avoid the disaster from that Washington D line, which is still excellent, but it's a risk I'm willing to take, getting points at home for two teams that if it weren't for the schedules, I think we'd be looking at these teams pretty evenly. And I think the Giants would probably be slightly favored at home. So give me the G-Men +2 home dogs against Washington.
Yeah, I like this. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a concern. Like they're down now to Pugh having to play left tackle, and but as I said last week, I think that I really liked Tyrod Taylor. I think he's going to start again this week, coming in as a spark and just as a face of optimism. Right, like everything has gone wrong for Jones. He lost his footing, he lost his confidence because of the offensive line, and they were able to use Tyrod's mobility and kind of do a lot of the things that they did last year with Daniel Jones and moving him around and moving him out of the pocket and making some easy throws. And then on defense, by the way, their linebackers were playing really well. Karake was playing at an all-pro level last week. McFadden had a really good game too, so they're playing better also. And yeah, you mentioned blitzing. I think the Giants are going to blitz a bunch here because Sam Howell, you mentioned 29th in quarterback rating against the blitz, 30% pressure to sack percentage when blitzed. That's massive. The only quarterback higher is Russell Wilson, who just, if you blitz him, he just ducks and takes. I mean, it's bad. And yeah, you mentioned the Commanders. They're 3-3. They beat the Cardinals by 4. They were down, 17 to the Broncos. And then they got dominated statistically last week against the Falcons. This team easily could be 1-5, just like the Giants. And look, I think Hal's going to make a mistake or two against the blitz. And on the other side, you have Tyrod Taylor, who is third all time among qualified quarterbacks in NFL history in lowest interception rate. So he just doesn't make mistakes. He's very, very careful with the ball. And that's really important in a divisional game with a super low total and could ultimately be the difference. But, I think the Giants can take a lot of confidence. And the offense is just so much different with Barkley, who can break a couple runs, gives the running game some explosiveness, and opposing defenses have to respect it. So you can run more play action, and I think it opens up some other things in the passing game. And you saw Barkley kind of start to get his feet under him at the end of that game. Against the Bills, he wasn't really doing much. Then he broke 2 long runs, so you could see him progress even a little more this week. All right, for my third pick and the 6th overall, the Week 7 Sunday 6-pack. You're not going to like this. I got a lot of notes, a lot of messages, tweets that said, can we please remove this team from the Sunday 6-pack? I got bad news, people. We're going with the New England Patriots. +8.5 at home against the Buffalo Bills. Fortunately for me, I'm not as hurt by them as I was for you. Indirectly, I was hurt.
The trauma.
I teased them, so I was okay last week. I played them the week before, and they burnt me. But I'm going back to the well. I just can't get to this number. So let's talk basic, just spread market perception. I think the Patriots are an all-time low. No one wants to bet them. You're definitely, they're awful in all 3 phases right now. You're definitely trying to catch the falling knife. But the Bills were -8.5 at home against the Raiders earlier this season in a great situational spot. The Patriots and Raiders, I have dead even on a neutral field. I did last week, and after that game, I made that like 1.5. I would, I liked your Patriots bet. I still have them dead even. Now the Bills are laying 8.5 on the road in New England. And they're down 3 all-pro caliber defenders. Their defense was healthy for that game against Raiders. And there is a massive drop-off. It's not just that you're missing those guys. There's a massive drop-off from Daquan Jones to Tim Settle and Jordan Phillips and Poona Ford. There's a huge drop-off from Matt Milano to a rookie in Dorian Williams. And a massive drop-off from Trey White to Kaiir Elam. Like, it's not just about when you lose a key player. It's about how well the replacement player is playing. Same thing with the quarterback. Von Miller's not all the way back, by the way. Russo's still dealing with his injury. Lawson and Floyd are still banged up. The defense has holes. You can run on them, and I think there's going to be coverage holes, which you saw a little bit of against the Giants, who had, guys from the couch playing offensive line. Speaking of bad offensive lines, the Patriots' offensive line has been horrendous. It's not all on Mac Jones. The pass catchers have been bad. The offensive line has been so bad. Here's among 195 offensive linemen with 100 snaps this year. Here's where some of the Patriots offensive linemen rank in pass blocking. At 195, Verdarian Lowe, 186. Calvin Anderson, 179. Sidney So, 182. Antonio Mafi, 183. That's 179, 182, 183, 186. They've played some games with all of those guys in the game. I mean, Mac Jones has been bad and has no time, can't do anything, and he's not mobile. There's a chance that all of them will be out of the lineup this week. You could get, I think Cole Strange is probably going to come back. They signed Connor McDermott, who he's a much better option than Verdarian Lowe. You cannot play with Verdarian Lowe out there. Riley Reif also could come back. Maybe you throw McDermott in there. Trent Brown didn't practice today, but does he ever? He's actually been pretty good. And, I still trust Andrews at center, even though he hasn't been good because the whole offensive line has been bad. So you could get a boost in the offensive line, which would be just – I can't tell you how bad some of their offensive lineups and rotations have been this year with some of those guys that just are some of the worst in the league when it comes to pass blocking. So I think that the Patriots offensive line could be in a little better situation this week. And it's not just because there's going to be anything good in there. It's that you're just putting replacement level players in there for guys who have been absolutely horrific. I think the Patriots will be able to run the ball a little bit on the Bills, which you can do. And this Bills defense just isn't healthy. And it's going to take some time for McDermott to figure this out and to make the adjustments, because he basically had to replace 3 all-pro caliber players with players who are nowhere close to that caliber. So I just simply can't get to this number. I mean, the Patriots last year, when they were 7-9 against a 13-3 dominating Bills team, were catching 8.5 to end the year in Buffalo. Now I'm getting 8.5 at home. And by the way, the Buffalo offense is completely out of rhythm right now. Josh Allen's also dealing with some soreness. Like, reporters even asking McDermott if he's going to play. He's going to play, but he's not in rhythm right now, and he's dealing with an injury. I can't get to this number. The Patriots also have been, hopefully you get Jack Jones back. They need some help in the secondary. The Patriots have been they've been bad. I mean, bad special teams, defense, offense. They've been extremely unlucky in terms of field goals, 4th downs, and fumbles. All these very high variance stats that have made, some of these scores look a bit lopsided. And for what it's worth, 3 of their losses have come by 1 possession, 2 of them at home against the Eagles and Dolphins. I think this number is too high. I don't want to do it, but I have to at this number. The first time Bill Belichick will close above a touchdown underdog at home since Tom Brady's first start in 2001. I just can't get to this number with the Bills team dealing with a ton of defensive injuries, impactful injuries, an offense that's out of rhythm against the Patriots team that I think's at rock bottom in the market. Hopefully the offensive line looks a little bit better, but I think they'll be able to run the ball and, short passes, which we saw the Giants succeed with last week. But ultimately, this number is just too high. I'm buying the Patriots. I apologize in advance.
Nah, it's the right play. It's absolutely the right play. You just got to keep hammering these teams till they get a cover. Honestly, I mean, it's
you
gonna
can't
happen.
let last week. You can't let last week impact like the team burnt you. A lot of times, because maybe when that happens, you might end up having value on them the next week, and you can't beat that. Last week already happened. Like I always say, last week was last week. A lot of times you have to hold your nose. And you got to go back. It doesn't like this week's. It's a silo, all right? Just because a team burnt you in the past doesn't mean you can't go back to them. So unfortunately, that's what my numbers are telling me. And this Bills team has issues that people might not be fully realizing, especially in the defensive end. They were already weak against the run, and now you're taking away your team leader and one of the best coverage linebackers. You're taking away your number one corner, and you have a guy who just hasn't lived up to expectations. Elam coming in. You got a rookie now playing at linebacker. Daquan Jones was playing at an all-pro level. He was number one in pass block win rate among interior defensive linemen. And now you're just getting like more of guys who are nowhere close to that level. So this defense is taking a big step back. I think they're going to have to sign somebody. I think McDermott's going to have to make some adjustments. That's going to take time. And the offense is just out of rhythm right now over the past 2 weeks. And Allen might not be 100%. Got to do it.
Yeah. And there's a couple of things I think that are working in the Patriots' favor. First of all, you mentioned the O-line getting healthier. Also, you should, and it can't get any worse at pass catchers. So you're starting to get some more healthy bodies back there. DeMario Douglas missed last week with a concussion. He's been their best receiver, in my opinion. Tyquan Thornton's back. I think he's a bust, but again, you can't get any worse. So now you're going to have Juju, Douglas, Thornton, Bourne's playing, the only one playing well. Maybe you can kind of cut Parker's snaps because Parker's been on the field pretty much every snap, and I don't think that's. I think he's done.
He gets no separation.
He needs to be a red zone. He needs to be what Isaiah Hodgins is to the Giants at this point.
Yeah.
But beyond that, you also are looking at this Buffalo offense that, like you said, could be a little bit out of rhythm. Now they should get Kincaid back, their tight end, but he hasn't really been super productive this year. But Josh Allen, that shoulder injury, it's not, we kind of, this is the type of time of year where, guys will play through things, but I think it was last year the Bills went through a little bit of a lull on offense when Allen got an injury. And, he played through it, but it just doesn't look the same. And I started to notice that he made that great throw to Quentin Morris. That was a great throw. Josh Allen's always going to do that. But down consistency, I didn't see it from Josh Allen last week. His adjusted completion rate, which, you're taking out spikes and throwaways and drops and all that, was just 65.5%. For the year, his average is over 80%. So it was his least accurate game of the season last week. And this Patriot defense, they're a little banged up too, but they held Miami to just 24 points. I know Buffalo kind of did the same, but that's the point is Patriots could still play defense, with the best of them. And I think, this Bills offense is a division game. There's a lot of familiarity. Josh Allen could be banged up. And James Cook is kind of that running game for the Bills. They wanted to be a little more power run this year, more 1-2 personnel. That really hasn't come to fruition, at least not lately. So, and if they get back to that, now you're just talking about potentially a lower scoring game. It's already a low total division game. Some weather involved. So that could also, combine with the injury to, the soreness for Allen's shoulder. I think there's a lot of ways the Pats could hang around, and they probably are going to need some luck, but it's about time that some luck went on the Patriots. And Jesus, losing a cover on a sack safety, that's still cannot fathom. But I agree with this one. All right, so that's going to do it for the Week 7 Sunday 6-pack. To recap, Stuck has the Ravens -3 against the Lions, the Rams -3 against the Steelers, and the Patriots +8.5 at home against the Buffalo Bills. I have the Los Angeles Chargers +5.5 at Kansas City, the Bucks -2.5 against the Atlanta Falcons. Don't mind the money line either. Falcons seem to be in kind of like a mini Chargers sometimes, but that might just be a home thing, but they seem to have a lot of close games. So if you can get the money line, 140, under 150, don't mind that either. And my third pick, the Giants +2 home dogs against the Commanders. This week's Coach's Pep Talk comes to us from actor Philip Seymour Hoffman in the 2007 film Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. And we got to dedicate this to the New England Patriots.
It's not fair! It's not fair! You can't just say sorry and make it all go away. It's too late. It's not that easy. It's not fair. It's not fucking fair. You can't do that.
All right, yeah. So best of luck to the Pats. Best of luck to you, Stuck, and everyone else kind of going back to the well with these New England Pats.
It sucks.
They're going to cover at some point.
We've come a long way from the Patriots being 2-point home dogs to the Dolphins and field goal home dogs to the Eagles. This is just too much of an adjustment against the Bills team that's lost 3 All-Pro defenders.
All right, Stuck, you and I know more memories are made when you're there for live NFL action. And when you need tickets, Ticketmaster has got you covered as the official marketplace of the NFL. Ticketmaster gives you more ways to find your perfect seat. Their interactive seat map gives you 360-degree previews of your section to make sure you have the best view of those pivotal plays. And if your plans change, Ticketmaster gives you more flexibility to sell or transfer your tickets. Plus, mobile tickets make getting in on game day a breeze. And you can even customize your Ticketmaster app to rep your favorite team's colors. Find tickets today at Ticketmaster.com/NFL. Time for our totals, favorite totals of the week. Stuck, you've been going with a lot of overs. You're 3-3. I'm 5-1. So I think that this lower scoring season might have not been the greatest time to go with some of these overs, but it's been a lot of bad beats, especially with that 7 field goals, whatever it was, six or 7 field goals from the Ravens last week. So where are you going this week?
Yeah, I mean, I would play all of those overs again. I mean, I had 40.5. It closed 42, and there should have been about 55 points in that game. And then the other over I had was Chiefs-Vikings with that, which I would bet that over again too. But we're going to go back to another over, and I'm going with the Lions-Ravens over 42. I think that this number is too suppressed. This is the same number against the Titans last week, and the Lions have a much better offense and just as questionable secondary. And look, we've seen historically, it's hard to really pinpoint this with the sample size, but these trips back from London, they have impacted defense more. So with the Bills last week, I think every team but one of the Giants have gone over their team total. And the Giants failed at the one twice. And I think every team's been leading in the fourth against the teams coming back from London, for what it's worth. But look, I think both of these offenses are a bit underrated. They both dealt with injuries this season. I mean, people aren't talking enough about the offensive injuries that the Lions have dealt with. And, they've had offensive line injuries. They've had injuries to all of their skill positions. And this offense is humming. Goff's playing really well. You could get some wins here, but I think this is just because of the suppressed scoring environment. I think there's just an overreaction to this total, giving some value on the over. And I talked about the Ravens offense. They dealt with some injuries. They now have everyone kind of assimilated back. They've been close. It was just red zone issues last week. It was drops the week before. They've also played a very tough schedule of opposing defenses. They've also dealt with some weather in a lot of their games. On the other side, I think both defenses are overrated. I think the Ravens defense has benefited from playing they played Stroud in his first start on the road with a piecemeal offensive line with weather. Hurt Burrow, Minshew in weather, DTR, Kenny Pickett, and then even last week, Tannehill gets hurt. I mean, all they're doing is playing weather and backup quarterbacks the entire season. The pressure is not where I think it needs to be. And then where do you need to attack this Ravens secondary? This Ravens defense is in the secondary. It's at corner. And I think the Lions here, really smart offensive coordinator and Ben Johnson, they don't have a running. I mean, Montgomery's a huge loss for what they want to do. So what are they going to do? I think they're going to come out a lot more pass heavier. I mean, Dan Campbell even came out and said, we'll use. He was asked about signing a running back. He said, we'll use wide receivers at running back. So I think they're going to come out and throw a lot more here, which is how you attack this Ravens team. And then this Detroit defense has played a bunch of clowns at quarterback. They have so many blown coverages that haven't been taken advantage of. Their secondary is weak. Their linebackers are great against the run, but they can't cover, and they're slow-footed. Like, look, I love what some of the things that the Lions defense has done, especially how it impacted their run defense, moving Anzalone to Will. Jack Campbell's been great against the run, but these aren't really fast linebackers. Lamar running the ball should have a lot of success here. I think there's just going to be open receivers all over the place. I think the Ravens get the 28-30, and the Lions have 14 straight games over 20 points. That includes 8 straight outdoors for Goff. I think they get to at least 20. I'll call this 28. Now, it would probably be too. It'll be a couple of few. I'll call this 30-24 Ravens.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see this total this low. Like, I know both of these defenses are playing well, but this is still a low total for two of the better offenses in the league, and especially what you expect a close game, kind of back and forth. And we've seen it. Like, a lot of the Ravens' issues offensively are correctable. It's drops, it's just stalled out drives in the in the red zone and in scoring position. And in the Lions, they'll figure it out. They have Jamison Williams now, so he puts stress on the defense even if he's not catching balls. Jahmyr Gibbs was limited in practice today, so even if Montgomery sits, they may get Gibbs back. So that'll
but he's not like your bruiser, so he's more valuable in the passing game. So I think their pass rate is going to be higher, and I also think the Ravens are going to have a higher pass rate here, knowing that's how you attack the Lions secondary. And if you just look at the quarterbacks these teams have faced over the last month, which I think is like it's Love, Ritter, Baker, Bryce Young, DTR, Hurt, Burrow, Tannehill, and Willis. Minshew and Weather, Kenny Pickett. Those are the 8 quarterbacks they faced over the past month. These offenses are both very good, and I think both secondaries are in for a rude awakening. I think Lamar's legs would be big here because I think he's going to break a number of big runs.
Yeah, exactly. That's another part of it. It's like if this game is close, like Lamar Jackson's going to do what he does outside the pocket. So, yeah, I like this one. For me, I'm going with the Browns Colts under 40. And you've been talking about it all year. Just going to trust this Browns defense to get us there. Cleveland's number 1 on defense in DVOA, number 1 against the pass, also number 4 against the run, 6th in pressure rate. I think that's big because the Colts have not faced a defense ranked higher than number 16 in pressure rate. Jacksonville, everyone else they faced has been below average. Houston, Baltimore, the Rams, the Titans. They've faced some pretty substandard, pass rushes in this first 6 weeks. Now, you're going to face this Cleveland defense and this Cleveland pass rush. Well, Gardner Minshew against pressure this season, that's where he's kind of getting exposed. He's putting the ball in harm's way. He ranks dead last of 35 quarterbacks in PFF grade under pressure, a 23.2. I mean, a bad grade is usually in the 50s or 40s. 23.2 is just miserable. 71% completion rate, just under 7 yards an attempt, and an 88 passer rating from a clean pocket for Minshew. Completion rate drops 20 points to 51% under pressure. The yards per attempt goes from 6.9 to 5.3, so over a yard and a half of a drop off there. And the passer rating drops almost 25 points down to a 65. So Minshew just has not been good. That tends to be the case with these backup quarterbacks. The more they have to play, the uglier it's going to get, especially in these high pressure situations. Easily the best defense that the Colts have faced. Right tackle Braden Smith has a hip injury, may miss another game. He is top 15 out of just over 70 tackles in terms of how he's grading out. So that is a loss there. And then on the other side of the ball, regardless of who's at quarterback for Cleveland, and it sounds like Deshaun Watson's just still not right with his shoulder, probably going to miss another week. So, but either way, Indianapolis defense is the least blitz-happy defense in the league. They blitz just under 16% of the time. Well, Deshaun Watson, when not blitzed, ranks 26 to 37 quarterbacks in terms of how he grades out. Last year, 42nd out of 43. So Watson, when you don't blitz him, not exactly the guy to take advantage of it. You can just kind of sit back, confuse him a little bit. And then PJ Walker, if you think Watson is bad against the blitz, PJ Walker this season, in his brief time that he's been playing, he grades out the worst of any quarterback when not blitzed. A 22.7 grade, which is terrible. Like, you're not being blitzed. Like, come on, bro. And Thompson Robinson, if he has to get in the game for some strange reason, he's bottom 4 against when not blitzed as well. So, this Cleveland offense has struggled more against these, zone heavy teams that just kind of sit back, keep eyes on, the quarterback, make sure it can't really do much in terms of creating out a structure. And, outside of Amari Cooper, it's not really a hard team to defend, especially without Nick Chubb kind of taking some pressure off and bringing the safeties down. DPJ hasn't really popped the same way he did last year. Elijah Moore, he's kind of been used as a gadget guy, but he really hasn't been good against this type of scheme either. He's been better against man coverage. So I like the matchup for both defenses. I know it is indoors. It's the only not because there are a few weather games, but I just think the numbers for the weather games have kind of come down a little too much. Whereas I think this number, I think it should. I think you'll be lucky if you get to the mid 30s in this game. I think either one of these offenses could lay an egg. Like I think you could see like another 27-3 Browns win, but I also think you could see the Browns only score 10 single digits or not much more than that. So a lot of different ways I think we can get here with this under 40 Cleveland Indianapolis.
Like it.
All right, let's go to our favorite teasers of the week. All right, Stuck, you've hit 5 out of 6. I've hit 4 out of 6. This is your specialty. You got a lot of great content out explaining your philosophy and how you're trying to tease through the 3 and the 7 if possible. So if anyone wants to go more in depth, just Google Stucky teasers. But I think we got the same teaser this week. So you could just tell the people what we're doing.
Yeah, we're going to go Seahawks down we're going to cross through 7-3 on both of these. Seahawks down from 7.5 to 1.5. Lower-ish total. You're under 45. You want to ideally cross through 3 and 7, and then you also want to have lower totals. Like Dolphins, Eagles, not the most ideal teaser piece, even though you can get through 3-7 because it's a high total. There's going to be more variance there and presumably more points. So with the Seahawks, look, I mean, I've been impressed with their defense. You can't run on them at all.
Nope.
And so what? This is up to Josh Dobbs in a loud environment against with a bad offensive line. I just don't see it happening. On the other side, Seattle can just lean on their run game here if they want to, and then you can run all over Arizona. That'll set up easy passes for Geno against a secondary that has to play cushion with a lot of cushion, and then they're getting the lowest pressure rate in the NFL. There's nothing to like about this Arizona team. Everyone was like, "Oh, wait, Arizona," because they beat the Cowboys. I think that was just a odd game. Since then, they've just been crushed by everybody. Seahawks should bounce back from a game they should have won. They've also been extremely unlucky on late downs on both sides of the ball. So we could have some positive regression coming there for Seattle. And then we're going to tease the Giants up. Very low total, divisional game going through 3 and 7. And I think also what you want, you also don't want when you're teasing these dogs up in low total, you don't want to make mistakes. And we have Tyrod Taylor who doesn't throw picks, doesn't make mistakes, because that's how you really could get burnt. And so I think Sam Howell has a much higher chance of making a key mistake here. So, even if the Giants offense isn't doing much, Taylor's not going to kill them with turnovers like Daniel Jones would. If Jones does end up playing, for what it's worth, he has dominated Washington. It's like his favorite team to play against. His numbers against, I think he's 5-1-1. His numbers against them are ridiculous. But I think the Giants keep this within one possession, lower scoring game, low total. So let's go Seahawks and Giants.
Yep, going with the same one. So we'll just get out of here. And as a reminder, the Action Network podcast is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION, ACTION, when signing up to get up to $1,500 paid back in bonus bets if your first bet loses. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, time for our Underdog Moneyline Parlay. Finally caught you. We're 2-4 on the year, so not as good as we usually do, but still a long season ahead of us. Washington came through last week. The Patriots, of course, did not. Who are you going with this week?
Let's just go with the quarterback variance with the dog. Let's go with the Bears. Tyson Bagent, who played in the PSAC, D2 Shepherd University. I don't put any stock into preseason. Some people do, but he at least got some experience last week. He's going to be going against Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell. Bears secondary is at least getting healthier. It's just basically how much chaos can Max Crosby cause? That's basically what I'm worried about. He usually lines up against the right tackle, and Darnell Wright's actually been the Bears' best offensive lineman. He's actually been pretty good. The rookie. The Raiders might move him around more. It's the rest of the Bears' offensive line, it's dire. But, it's just a game of backup quarterbacks, and who knows what the fuck can happen. I'll happily take the home dog on the money line in a game with a ton of variance.
Yeah, it's like everyone's acting like the Raiders. It's just like, come in and easy win, favorite on the road, laying 3. The Raiders are in just as much of a quarterback conundrum as the Bears, unless Jimmy Garoppolo just magically, heals up. So it's going to be either Aiden O'Connell or Hoyer. And it might be O'Connell, who just did nothing but take sacks. Not great pocket awareness in that first start. So
the Raiders are kind of like the Commanders, by the way. They're 3-3, but they have wins over the Patriots, Broncos, and Packers, a banged up Packers team, by 1, 4, and 4.
Yeah, they're not good. They're not good. That's why I'm surprised. Like, I guess with Jimmy's not 100% ruled out yet, right? Like, I think it sounds like he's not going to play, but I don't think they've officially ruled him out. So, because this line is a little bit steep. The Bears are plus 135 on the money line. I'm going with the Miami Dolphins plus 110 at Philly. And, this is just a kind of, Miami obviously is a high variance team just because they rely on explosive plays and, just kind of unique advantages that not really many other teams rely on. But this is, we're early in the week, we're recording this. It's Wednesday, and this is just a bet on the Eagles' lack of health because, it's so many guys. I can barely list them, but Lane Johnson, ankle injury, that's big,
Big.
They're saying he's going to push to play. Doesn't sound like he's actually going to play. The Eagles are 84, 48, and 1, 64% straight up, averaging over 26 points a game with Johnson in the lineup since he was drafted. Without him, just 13 and 22, 37% straight up, 22.3 points a game. So a 4-point drop off and a 27 point drop off in terms of the win percentage. So massive. Then your left guard Jurgens is still on IR. His replacement hasn't been as good. Your number 3 receiver Quez Watkins is on IR. Julio Jones is not going to fill that void. Who they just signed, Avonte Maddox, McPherson, Roby's out, so the cornerback situation still not great, and that's a big issue against Miami. Darius Slay is questionable. We'll see if he can go. Their safety Blankenship is also questionable. Their D-line is not completely healthy either. We'll see if Carter can go. But really, I think that the banged-up secondary, major issue. Philadelphia's defense, the injuries have already taken their toll. Philadelphia just 20th in DVOA against the pass. They're giving up the 5th most catches to wide receivers, the 10th most yards, and the 4th most touchdowns to wide receivers. So this game could get out of hand for Philly and Philly's offense has looked a little bit disjointed. Now Miami isn't a tough defense to go against, but now you're down some old linemen. Your offense has been out of sync, and you're going against a team that could force you to play aggressive, offense and have to score, 30 plus. There's a lot of variance here. Like I agree, Philly should be favored slightly, but this could easily get away from the Eagles if it's just a bad spot.
Yeah, and they really struggle over the middle of the field, and that's where Miami can attack you. So it's really interesting about the red zone regression suggests the Eagles maybe have some regression coming. The Dolphins is basically scoring a touchdown every time they get in the red zone. The Eagles have surprisingly struggled, even though they can run the ball well. But this is explosive versus methodical. Like, who's going to win out? Can the Eagles just have these long drives and wear out the Dolphins? And how many explosive plays can this Miami team hit by attacking a vulnerable Eagles pass defense, especially over the middle of the field where Tua can live? So, I think especially if the injuries aren't great for Philly, my intuition says Miami sneaks this out. Should be a fun one.
Bears plus 135 at home against the Raiders. Dolphins plus 110 on the road against the Eagles. If you parlay those together, you get plus 394. So just under 4-1. Hopefully we can cash that this week. And finally, we've got best of the rest games we haven't covered in any other segment, but are still, as they say, meaningful to some. So the only one here is the Packers at the Broncos. Broncos are 1 point home underdogs. The total is at 45. I'm mostly in line with the market on this. I think I have it as a pick actually, so maybe slight value on Denver, but I'm not touching Denver. And then Jordan Love is kind of what I expected. You know, he's got arm talent, but some of the mechanics still a little sloppy. It's forcing some inaccuracy down the field, even though he has arm strength, forcing some bad reads from time to time. So I think the bye will help Green Bay, because when I watch Green Bay, I see a lot of correctable things like Love, just the way he's dropping back and you know, things like where his shoulders are square to as he's releasing the ball, his footwork. Christian Watson in turn making, you know, reads on some of those choice routes. You got to be able to do that as a true number one wide receiver if you want to get to there. You also got Aaron Jones coming back, which should be good against a bad run defense. So I think the bye does benefit the Packers, but going to Denver is still a tough spot to play, especially for a young quarterback like Love. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Love has struggled a bit recently, but he's still inexperienced, and the offense had a ton of injuries along the offensive line. Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, like these are all important players that they've been missing. So they should be much healthier here. They're also blitzing a lot on defense, and Russ is done. He's done against the blitz. He can't do anything. He's the worst quarterback in the league by far against the blitz this year. So I'm in line with the market here. I make the Packers, I think, like 1.5 point favorites. Denver's allowing a 14% explosive play rate, which is insane. It's the highest in the NFL. So Packers could hit some big plays here. What I'll be looking for, and this is something for the rest of the season until, you know, maybe the Broncos blow it all up. The Broncos offense has been elite early on in games. The scripted portion that Peyton is putting together every week has been really good. And then everyone is just like, all right, let's just blitz Russell Wilson. And then he just ducks and gets sacked. So the Broncos, like, there's a good chance here. They come out. They have a really good first two offensive drives look good. Maybe they go up 7-10-0. Look for the Packers live then. Because this defense is not holding any leads, and the Broncos offense then falls off a cliff.
And hopefully the Packers come out with a better plan. I think their play calling's been up and down. Some of the play designs have been good. Some have not been so good, but some of the sequencing of plays for them. So, I think out of all teams that could have used a bye right now, I think the Packers are at the top of the list. And, Russ, I mean, against the blitz, what do you want the guy to do? Like, nobody gets open on this team. Like, and that's including, I mean, Jerry Jeudy, you gotta silence these doubters. I mean, you're supposed to be the best receiver on his team. Really, they should be getting Mims more involved. I don't know what the holdup. I don't know what they're seeing in practice. That's like not, I hope it's not just, he has a role on special teams, so we're not, unleashing him in the offense. But it's a 10-day break now. We need to see more of Marvin Mims because Judy's not getting open. Sutton's never been a separator. Judy's kind of giving up on routes. Russ is best at the scramble drills, and these guys don't run hard through the routes. They don't, once the route is over, they kind of stop. So it's ugly for this Broncos offense. It's not just on Russ, but he doesn't know what to do with these
but
guys.
Scripted portion's been good, so I'm gonna look for Packers live if they're down after the first quarter by a touchdown.
Hopefully LaFleur runs the ball because put Jordan Love. Still, I think going to be interception prone just because some of the mechanics. So the Packers, it seems like 3 years now they've just needed to run the ball more and stop the run on defense. Stop playing so soft on, especially on running to like third and mediums and shorts. Just like letting the offense just walk in there, making tackles 5 yards down the field. So a lot of schematic things I would like to see change on both sides. But Packers, I think, are the better team. Going to Mile High, tough place to play. Nothing for me on this one. Let's close it up with Survivor. All right, for this week, I got to go Seattle. Went Washington week 1, Giants, Chiefs, Niners, Dolphins, Bills. Seattle this week makes a ton of sense to me. You kind of mentioned it. The Cardinals are dead last in pressure rate. Geno Smith has been one of the best quarterbacks from a clean pocket this year. Yards per attempt, 5.1 under pressure, 8.3 when cleaned. Completion percentage, 51% under pressure, 77% when clean. Should be clean most of this game. And Seattle already top 3 in explosive plays on offense. Well, now you're also going to have down-to-down consistency against this defense because Arizona is dead last in early down success rate.
Can't stop the run.
Defense. Yep. Bottom
and
three
their corners play way off, so you can just make so many easy throws. Yep. It's a mess.
Yeah, there's not a lot of talent, so they have no choice. Those corners are going to get burned if they don't. And on the other side, you mentioned it, Seattle can make you one-dimensional, and they'll probably have a lead. So it should be a good game for Seattle's defense, good game for Seattle's offense. And Seattle, they have Washington in Week 10, but Washington's better than Arizona. And then Week 17, Pittsburgh, but that's Tomlin dog spot, wait in the air. You might be gunning for that, 500, over 500, whatever it is. So I think this is the best time to use Seattle. Their other home games, Cleveland, San Francisco, and Philly, besides Washington and Pitt. So I think it's now or never for the Seahawks. So we're going to go with them and try to survive for a 7th straight week.
Yeah, you sweated the yard out for the Giants and survive. That's what it's all about. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean it. Could have got real bad there. But thank you, Tyrod, for throwing that ball a little bit high, and refs for not calling that PI. All right, that's a wrap for us. Thanks for listening. We'll be back here every Thursday all season long, and you can hear more of myself this week with my guy Kerner talking fantasy, DFS, all that stuff on the Fantasy Flex podcast. Of course, check out the Action Network Discord server as well. If you want to chat directly, the link will be in the episode description. And you can hear Stuck talking college football over on the Big Bets on Campus podcast Friday morning. Stuck is on Twitter, formerly Twitter, X now, at Stucky2. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this shmoney.
Let's go.